Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Pinpointe Unfiltered. I'm Rachel.
And it's your boy, Josh, the realtor of realtors. How is everyone doing today? Rachel, who is this lovely guest we have today?
We have the CEO and founder of Oyster, and her name is Ines Illarramendi. For all you non-Hispanic folks, you can call her Ines Illarramendi. I don't know how
Artist
how
formerly
more
known
you
as...
can butcher it. Um, but it's really not hard. Ines, okay? So welcome to the
Welcome.
show.
We don't have sound effects yet.
Yay! Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So, to give people in the world some context, we met on the LinkedIn's, right?
Yeah.
Where you
And
handle all your social, not even
yo,
media, just your social,
my social calendar comes from
your
LinkedIn
social
these days.
calendar
I've
is
made so
just
many new friends off of LinkedIn. It's
solely on
amazing.
LinkedIn. She got
Yeah,
more friends in LinkedIn than in real life.
yeah.
Well, it's good.
um,
It looks like it's working. You know what you're doing is
yeah.
really you're actually seeing the impact.
Thanks. Yeah. So we're doing some similar things. So why don't you tell us about Oyster and why you started it and all that good stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So Oyster is an app to help people who are coming from other countries get settled and start their life and navigate the complexities of US life once they get here, and hopefully as they continue their lives here and they transition into new stages. And the reason why I started this is I lived this myself. I got here to the US 12 years ago, over 12 years ago. I think at some point I should stop counting. Um, I thought I would never count after like a decade, but now it's like, yeah, 12 years. I moved to DC first. I did an internship there. I stayed for a job. And then I moved to California to study. Then I moved like through different California cities for work. And as I was going through all the stages, the one thing that was constant was this experience of starting over and feeling like there was no roadmap. And learning the hard way through my own experience, and then realizing that actually a lot of people who had been through that before had all the lessons, right? But that knowledge that they had, that they would share on occasion, and that I, kind of made it my mission to share with other people through blogs, through guides, through friends, just through meeting friends or friends of friends or even strangers. It was kind of like going nowhere, like all that knowledge. And yeah, like that was so it was so important for me as I went through it, and I could see how important it was for others. It just like evaporated. So I always felt how inefficient that system is. The fact that we're all reinventing the wheel. And I thought, yeah, why not try having this space where all this collective knowledge turns into a collective navigation, and
Hmm.
it turns into a structured roadmap of steps that people have to follow. And then you also have, access to uh, partners that are vetted, that are trusted by the community members, and a place where you can ask questions and meet people. So yeah, that's what I'm building, and I actually have an announcement. It's I'm almost about to launch on beta.
Yes.
Yeah.
You heard it here, folks, first.
Oh,
Fuck, I can't.
breaking news. I love that.
Except for my friends and people, like I haven't even shared it with people on the wait list. I
Shit.
kind of like, yeah. I cried this morning as I looked at it. I was like, I did some updates last night, and then I saw it in the morning. I was like, actually, I feel like now is the time to, like, I
Hell
never feel it.
yes. Yeah.
You know that feeling, like, that
Yeah.
feeling I'm nothing's ever ready. Like, it's like your baby and putting it out there. But now I feel like it's ready. It's ready to see the
That's
world, and
awesome.
it's crowdsourced.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's so many people that will build and like it's not ready yet and then keep adding and adding and adding. But the whole point like is an MVP, right? Get it out there, get people to start using it, get feedback.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be perfect, right? So I'm super excited for you. This is gonna be amazing.
Congratulations. It's a big
Thank
it's a
you.
big step. Or a big step.
Yeah.
Thank
I also
you.
I also love like um your whole like idea of how, people have done this move together and they have all this knowledge that's in their heads, right?
Yeah.
And there's no place for them to share it unless somebody asks them, right? It's not like
Yeah.
they're going out and saying like, "Hey, ask me. I have this experience," right? Um,
Yeah.
and I kind of like I'm an operations nerd. I'm also like super type A. So like for me, I always write things down, right? So that it doesn't live in my head. Uh, and it makes the most sense. So like, Josh can tell you when we started the company, I started writing SOPs and he's like, nobody's reading that. It's just us.
I feel you though. I'm the same way. Like,
Right. But
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 I'm glad we have it now. Like we have
yeah.
like a team, like we have systems in place.
Right. But the point
Granted I don't
isn't
use them very well, but still.
no, you don't. But I love that you enforce the use of it.
Facts.
um,
Like
but my point is like it's the same concept, right? Like
yeah.
put put all the information, all the knowledge, get it out of somebody's head and share it with the people that will get value out of it. So I love that concept. And it's like it's community focused and people come here from different countries and they don't know anybody, they speak different languages. It's a very isolating experience, I can imagine. I haven't experienced that myself. My wife has. She moved here when she was 12. Um didn't speak the language. It was terrifying. um, so yeah, like having a place where people can go that they can trust and get real eh, real knowledge from people that have gone through it firsthand, and then also access to like people that can help them along the way is like huge. It's insane that we don't have more of these uh apps. You know what I'm saying? Like, how is that possible?
Yeah. I mean, I love that you say that because when I started with this idea, and of course the idea was part of a process. It's not that it was like completely shaped like this in my head, but yeah, like at first was like, is this possible? And I felt like I talked to a lot of people, and everyone told me they wanted something like this, but then it felt impossible, to make it work. I mean, like, we'll see how it goes. But to your point, yeah, it's like how pretty much everyone I know had these documents that they wanted to share with others, or wanted to share that tip or that hard earned lesson. And it's kind of like two ways. You're helping someone, but also you're feeling that feeling of, well, I'm not a newcomer anymore. Actually, I have
Mm,
this knowledge, and this is valuable. So it really also helps the people, the person who's sharing that. And then the other thing is that it's the fact that it can be live, right? That it
mm,
can always be updated. Because of the other thing, like I moved here 12 years ago. If someone asked me what my experience was like 12 years ago, there are some things that are, I'm sure, still relevant, but most won't be. So a lot of people know people and they come to us and they're like, hey, like I'm moving to the US. How was your experience? Can you help me? And people feel unhelpful because even though they can share information, maybe it's not exactly relevant. So it's the fact that you can, this like Oyster is like live, it feeds from the experience of someone who went like through it yesterday or today. And that's how it's like extremely
that's
updated
awesome.
and get all these edge cases.
That's so cool.
keep the people in the know. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
um So there's two questions that I thought of as you were talking, and I will start with one. Why oyster? What is the reason behind the name, if there is one?
Then oh, so I actually this turned out to be an anecdote. I didn't think about this. So the expression "the world is your oyster." I
Yeah,
don't know if you've heard. Okay,
yeah.
because I don't know exactly where I learned that, but I just thought that it was something that it was kind of like universal, that it was, oh yeah, the world's your oyster. Not sure why I came to assume that. But when I was building the app, because this problem is not just lived in San Francisco or in the US, it's really like a worldwide problem. I come from
Mm-hmm.
Uruguay. Many of my friends, are living abroad. I know a lot of people who moved to Uruguay. And all I hear is that, this is a problem that happens everywhere. Anyone who's moving to a different country or even a different city. So because like for me, like the hope, the vision is global, I thought, oyster, the world's your oyster. And the anecdote, the kind of like the joke is on me is that no, actually, like it's not a well-known expression. Most people don't know it. So then people get to ask me, and it's curious because when I talk about this, I usually start by saying what we're solving now, right? What we're doing here in San Francisco and what we hope to do in the US. And only after they ask, I share that the vision is global, which is extremely ambitious. And I wouldn't say it right away. It sounds crazy because I haven't
Mm-hmm.
even launched fully.
It's
how I
It's
not
would.
not crazy.
crazy.
It's not crazy.
It's not crazy. Trust
I,
me.
well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. But the interesting part is that it actually comes from a question. When people show curiosity about the name, that's when I get to share. Well, the vision is
Hmm.
actually global. And
That's
that's also
awesome.
my expertise. Like working on global products, bringing products to new markets, and making sure they feel local. So for me, it was like always part of how I thought about it. Glad to hear that you don't think it's crazy.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
I love that Josh and I both are at the same time. That's not
Yeah,
crazy.
like, yeah. You
But
should have heard.
maybe it's just because he and I are crazy. So that's
Uh,
that's not.
No, I mean
listen,
that's our club, right? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
It's
I'm
just
crazy until I'm a genius.
yeah.
Like it's like, oh, it sounds crazy, and then eventually it's like he's actually kind of on it.
Let's not talk
Um,
about that weather right now. Yeah?
no, we're not going to talk
like
about the weather. We won't talk about the weather.
and you guys are
Um,
entrepreneurs, so there's some type of like delusion, right? And
Yeah.
and believing that you can build something and do something, make it better, and like so I think we're part of that club. But yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it does feel like delusion or just like
Yeah. I
crazy.
think as a founder, for sure, you have to be a little delusional, and maybe a little narcissistic, right? Um,
so we got a lot of both of that. Awesome.
I've
I
got it
mean,
in spades.
I think that it can definitely be seen as narcissism, like when you're building something and you have to
Mhm,
be okay with facing all this skepticality, right? Like all these
mhm.
like, oh, if this could work, it would exist. Or I don't see it. Like I got a lot of like,
Yeah.
no, I don't see how that would work. Or people telling me it's gonna be very hard. And I'm like, yeah, I never got into this thinking it would be easy.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that like I see how it could be seen as narcissism saying, I have to trust myself
Hmm.
more than
Hmm.
all these voices and anything else I'm hearing.
Well,
Yeah.
if you're passionate about what you're trying to accomplish, and like obviously just talking to you for a few minutes, you are. It it's gonna be okay. You can be as delusional as you want because you're gonna drive this. I can tell you from experience, our delusion has got us to the point where we're doing a podcast now. Like this was never on the table for us, right? We never thought that these things were gonna be part of our everyday life, and now look at
Shit,
us.
Josh, I think we've been doing the podcast for a year now.
Yeah,
Wow.
just about like, well, we need to have like a podcast
Yeah,
year
Oh
like
yeah, weren't we supposed to
recap.
do it? We were supposed to
Like,
do like an anniversary 1 year something with all of the like a bunch of guests that have come on, right? That was
well,
one of
she's
your
wow.
ideas.
she's the second Uruguayan that's been on. That's been on.
Wait, who else has been?
Um,
I didn't.
they all know each other essentially.
Yeah, I mean, who's the other one? I mean, so, I say, like it's a country of three
So
point
so we
people.
have it's a country of 5 people.
Like,
They're all cousins.
Actually,
Um,
that's Paraguay. I was just a quick side note. I have
excuse
no.
me,
oh, she's a
I
founder from Paraguay or from Uruguay?
no,
from Uruguay.
she's from
Yes.
Uruguay.
Okay.
But well, as we're talking about a country of 5 people, I have never met a single person from Paraguay, and I like have this running joke that I'm like that country doesn't exist. It's like fake. And I even
Wakanda?
went. Yeah, I
And
went
I'm not a
to.
Paraguayan, so if
Yeah, well,
that's
your
the
neighbors. But like I went to a Copa America game. Was it last year, the year before? No, whenever they had it, and it was Colombia versus Paraguay. And I was like, "There's people wearing these jerseys," but it was like 5 of them. Obviously, the entire stadium was full of Colombians.
uh,
So I was like, "Yeah, and this country doesn't exist."
They have no
wow, it's
fans.
important. Wow.
But anyways, okay, back to the other
No, I
Uruguayan that
couldn't.
was on the show.
I'm sorry. Just as I note, I love how you put it because do you know how many people I met here who tell me I'm the first Uruguayan they met? Like it happens all the time. So now I wonder, like, if they feel like, oh, now I trust that there's like that's a country. Now I think that
Yeah.
I'm starting to get worried that it's like a takeover. Like, oh, you guys just keep coming on in, like one by one, everybody's just taking over. But it's not bad. You guys are lovely people. The food is good, and it's a party every time you're around. Um, yeah, it
Nice.
was another relocation. It was a relocation client. She was coming from London actually, so she was raised in Uruguay, came from London, and like it would have been lovely to have met you prior because these are the type of people
yeah.
that we meet constantly, and your app would definitely help out in so many different aspects. we kind of do a similar thing where when we're face to face with people, right? When we actually get their contact and we could, bring them along the way of the process of like relocating for, let's say, New York. Um, but we do it more on a personal level where we get them in front of us and like, hand in hand, we're getting on the train and like walking through the streets. I'll tell you where the
Wow.
best pizza is, like all that stuff. But what you're
You
doing is
do
on a
that?
bigger scale, and like that's lovely.
I love that you say that because one thing I mentioned is that one of my inspirations for building Oyster was that I did have access to a relocation service. Not when I first moved here. I was 6 years in the US moving cities. And then last time I moved from LA to San Francisco for my previous role, they offer relocation services. And for me, I was like, wow, I didn't know this even existed. And like to be fair, it's pretty inaccessible, especially for anyone who wants to pay for that for themselves. And I don't even know if they offer that, B2C. But the one part that was missing was what you're saying, right? Like feeling like there's someone who actually cares, who's going to show you the city and, through the lens of how they're living it, which is kind of what someone also needs, not just that like checking a box. And that's also what I learned, talking to people here that a lot of the services they received. And that's a thing we know when you're coming from another country. Any support you receive, you'll be grateful for,
Mhm.
like you just expect getting nothing. So whatever help, helps, right?
Mhm.
But then when you go deeper, they would share like that's the part that was missing, that idea of feeling like that someone cared on the other side, that they really wanted you to succeed and feel at home. So it's amazing that you do that, guys.
Yeah, I
What's
mean,
Got it.
I was just gonna say, like, what we like to call ourselves ambassadors to the city because we want to make sure that everybody has like this is their first their first real impression of New York. So we want it to be a good one, right?
Yeah.
Moving to a new place is scary. It doesn't if it's daunting and terrible, right? And stressful, like you're just gonna have a bad taste in your mouth
Yeah.
until you're able to get settled, if you ever do, right? Like, um, there was a study done recently that said 40% of relocations fail
Wow.
because of logistics, stress, like family integration. It's insane. And then another study, and we're putting a bunch of research together, and we're gonna release it on our website and stuff. But another study basically showed that um, relocation is one of the most stressful experiences a human goes through in life, and it ranks along divorce and death.
Wow. I mean, I
I
accept. I mean, yeah.
had a
I
question
think what
though.
surprises it's crazy, right? I think what surprises me there because I've also, like read a lot of research and we're working with a psychologist with like
Hmm.
a like trained therapist who is experiencing migration. Actually, everyone who's,
Right. We
worked
were talking about this. Yeah.
yeah. th- I hope I'm not saying it wrong, but she mentioned this even like there's like a syndrome that's called I think it's Ulises, the like Ulises syndrome which we should check it out, like we'll do the check to make sure I'm not saying it wrong. But it's what you're describing, right? Is one of the most stressful experiences someone can live and even has its own syndrome and what people experience. I mean, we're all like everyone experiences in their own way and there's
Hmm.
no universal truth, but there are a lot of patterns. And the way we're actually thinking about Oyster is including that, the fact that usually people are
Mm.
going through certain stages. And how, there's like the excitement and then the disillusionment and what you mentioned, right? If you get to a city like New York that it's so amazing, I'm sure like it's people's dream to live there. But then you also heard these crazy things about how like hostile it can be. And then like I think someone who moves there, I imagine, is gonna think like, no, it's gonna be amazing. And then maybe they have their first experiences and they're not great. So your mind goes straight into, I guess those people were right. I shouldn't have come.
Mhm.
And the hard part that happens is usually a lot of people don't want to share it with people who are back home, right?
Mhm.
So people who encourage you to go or who are even skeptical. And you don't wanna worry people, you don't wanna worry your family that you're having maybe second thoughts, and also you're not having second thoughts, it's just part of the experience.
Yeah.
So who better to support you than people who get this and mostly because they they've experienced it themselves, and they've gotten past that, and another have.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend of mine a while ago who is from Europe, and she was like, I was talking because I was like, why do people outside of America still believe in the American dream? Right? Like, we don't believe in the American dream.
Don't.
Uh, and and she was like, I think it's because everyone that leaves their country, when they come back home or they're calling back home, they're saying that it's all great because
No.
either they're afraid to admit that it's difficult and they're working 3 jobs to make ends meet, or they're grateful for the opportunities that they have, even though it's hard.
Wow. I mean, I got
So,
goosebumps. Yeah.
so that, like, I mean, we haven't done any studies on this, but it's just like her experience of being, um, from another country and having like seeing both sides of it.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me, right? Like,
Yeah.
you so I wonder if like it's just like a self-perpetuating tale.
Wow. I mean, I love that way to put it, is self-perpetuating like tale. I think there's a lot of normalization, and is even sometimes
Mm,
glorification of struggle.
mhm,
And I think what you just said,
mhm,
wow, it's just like it's like I've experienced that, and I've seen it in other people, right? Like there are many reasons why someone wouldn't want to share like the full experience of how hard it is. And I think part of it is like and this is how I see anyone who's moving to a new country across the board, right? But for whatever reason they're doing it. Like it's people who are leaving, like going through this like crazy stressful experience. But usually what I've seen, at least in many cases, is this like kind of like adventurous feeling, this idea of like I'm going there for a better opportunity, like to build something for myself, for my family, like have this opportunity to do better than where I am. I mean, like it's seen as like some type of progression, even though there's a lot of loss, and that is real. And I mean, a lot of people can see it as temporary, so then it's kind of easier to have like just to live with it. But I think it's what you're saying. Like part of it is that there's a filtering where at the end of the day, there's so much good that is coming out of it. So we just normalize that the struggle is part of it. And then there's also the fear of sharing it, fear of being seen as ungrateful, as
mhm,
unsuccessful, as I mean, sometimes there are people who maybe, kind of as we were saying, right, starting a company. There are people who for some reason maybe might not be very supportive. And then like that's usually not the people with whom you want to talk when you're having all these doubts. But then what happens in this, like I mean, this is, also something that I've experienced and I've seen so many people, but who's that person that's going to support you where you're in, like in your new place, right? In your new life. And for example, sometimes your first points of contact are your manager or a professor, someone in school. And like you're here for this experience. Like it's very hard for people to feel like they are the people they can get support in. And like usually the fear is, are they gonna think, they made a mistake, they shouldn't have brought me, they made this effort in bringing me, because there's also that, or I need to show that I belong. I need to show that I'm good for this. So they're also usually not the people who someone will feel comfortable sharing all these doubts, or doubts, that like that duality, which is so real in the experience.
mhm.
Which
Yeah.
is why every chance I get, I'm gonna shout from the rooftops. Everyone needs to get down and deal with Oyster.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
please.
because
Yeah.
look, I'm all about the like plugging people. I love it. I love what you're doing, what you're creating. Um, it's the online version of us, kind of, Rage. Like, you know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Exactly.
Where everyone always asks like, "Oh, what's your like niche as like a brokerage?" I was like, "No, we're just like people, and we treat people as
Like
people."
people.
Wow.
We are
Yeah.
we keep everything pretty light, and we understand like when we first started this relocation, we understood that sometimes we're the first point, like you said, first point of contact. We represent so much. Like we represent, New York, we represent an industry, we represent, Hispanics, like all these different things.
Mhm.
Um and we
Yeah.
take pride in, maybe it's how we're raised, right? Where we're, yes, we're tough, but we're very loving, and like we want to bring people in. It's like, come eat, sit, have a good time. go about your business. We're gonna like help you and then keep you moving and set you off in the right path. But with what you're doing, you're gonna be able to do it on such a bigger scale, which is cheers to that.
Thank you. I mean, I love how you say that because there is so much responsibility, right? When you're one of the first few people, or maybe the first person who's talking to someone who's going through this experience and moving into a new country. And what you're saying, which is we're humans, working with humans, helping humans, which should be the basic expectation in any interaction. Like in the world we live in, is really like the biggest, I think, competitive advantage, right? And it shouldn't be, it should be like the basic expectation, but meeting someone who really sees you and cares about you as a person and who really understands what you're going through in such an important experience. And especially I would say when it comes to immigration, and relocation, where I think it's hard even for me to say, but it's that gratitude that also allows us to be okay with not getting from the right support to even like dignity, right?
Mm,
Respect.
mhm.
So I love that. I love what you're doing. And yeah, I mean, that's the hope, right? That it reaches a certain scale, because that's what I like for me, it's accessibility, right? Accessibility of the type of support. That's what I'm hoping this will create.
It will be. So just keep
Yeah.
at it. You'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just hoping
Um,
I can have like couches all across the world that I can sleep on. If I'm nice to all these newcomers that come in, it's like, hey, I'm going to your country. I need a place to stay.
so okay, I'm glad that you just said that because remember I said I had two questions and the first one was about the name Oyster and then I didn't ask the second question and now
Yeah. Yeah.
Josh, you just tied it
Sure.
right back in. Ready?
Segway, baby. I
You just tied
got
it
Yeah.
right
you.
back. You just said newcomers and Ines said newcomers earlier, right? So what does newcomers stand for? It's a stand-in for immigrants, right? Because in the United States, we don't have a better fucking term. Um, and Ines, I know we talked about this previously. Is
Yeah.
what? How can we rebrand the essentially immigrants?
Yeah.
Like similar in a similar vein as we rebranded global warming to climate change, right? It's the same exact same. It describes the exact same phenomena. It's just a more appropriate and it
Yeah.
doesn't have a negative connotation. So I told you when we were talking about this that I use the term expats,
Yeah.
um, which for any Americans watching, it means expatriate. We don't use that term in the U.S., um, which is really strange because Americans will use that term to refer to themselves when they move to another country.
Yeah. That's so
Um,
interesting. By the way,
yeah,
I'm a
it,
linguist. Did I share
we
this?
yeah. I mean, I
Okay.
know this, but the rest of the world
I'm
doesn't.
like a
So
language
please,
nerd,
you're a
this is
linguist.
this is my turf. I love this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I know, like we talked about, like trying to ask different people, doing some research, see what word resonates better, because we want also people. I think I don't want to speak for you, but I think we both want people to feel like comfortable with a word that describes who they are. Um, so like I said, I use expats because everywhere else in the world there's immigrants and there's expats. Um, and there's obviously like it's not the best word, right? I use it because it's currently the better word than immigrant.
Yeah.
Because in this country, especially at this current climate, immigrant is a dirty word.
Yeah.
It's almost
I
like
mean,
a derogatory term. So how
yeah.
can we reclassify people? Um, but everywhere else in the world, expat usually will refer to like a middle class or higher,
Yeah. There's like
right?
the class
They're coming
also like
it's a class
part
it's a
into the
class definition,
conversation.
right? They're coming here for work, right? They have a career, something like that, whereas opposed to an immigrant or even worse, potentially a refugee. Not worse that you shouldn't be a refugee, but like the in American terminology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um so but then also expats around the world also has a negative connotation.
It does? Okay, wait. And by the way, I didn't know that the etymology was expatriates. which
Uh-huh.
makes so much sense. And I never
But that
stopped.
is why it's a negative connotation, because it's an expatriate,
But
right? You've
meaning like you're
left
not
your
thinking
country.
like you
Yeah.
like deserve it.
Yes.
Like it, okay, wow,
I
interesting.
have so many things to
It,
say. I'm gonna keep this one. I'm gonna follow this one up. Okay. Please, please.
No, go ahead, Josh. Like,
No,
I
no,
want to.
no. Like, because
yeah.
listen, we're in a business and I don't want to get canceled by anyone for hurting people's feelings.
Yeah. Well, all of
But that's
this
the
is
thing
about
with
people's
words,
feelings.
right? Like, it's crazy what they start meaning and then
Mm-hmm.
what they, and it's like, again, I'm a language nerd, right? But what they, how the meaning evolves and then also
Mm-hmm.
what people think about it when they
Mm-hmm.
hear a certain word.
Yeah.
So yeah, like
Excuse me.
about immigration. I mean, first of all, like I fully agree. I mean, I think this is like just a realistic, you, like observation of reality that immigration, unfortunately, is being named and seen as something bad.
Mm-hmm.
In many countries. I'm not just here in the U.S.
Yeah. Many.
In like around the world. Part of me wanting to build Oyster is that I truly don't believe that. I believe so much in the value that immigrants bring to any new country, any immigrant really. This is not just like here we also hear like we want the best immigrants and like what that does really I don't know
What does
like
that
I think
mean?
we know where that goes, but I mean but I really believe in the power of immigration, and I think the world is more open than we think. And part of my crazy, idea, which I don't, or like vision that I don't share so much about, is eventually I want people to be able to choose where they want to live, and I'm not gonna change the rules of the countries. Like I'm not gonna do advocacy to see if we can change. I can't even vote here, and
Mm-hmm.
which is sad. I started having a kind of like a politics career in Uruguay. I was involved in politics, and that could have been, that could have been like
Why are
a
you
route.
laughing?
No, it's such a small world. Like so many common things from our Uruguayan guests.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay. I mean, like I think you're right. Like people, you tend to get more involved in politics, but that's like separate conversation. But yeah, I could have gone, trying to like change. There's so many things to improve in the world, and I could have tried to go that route. And I ended up thinking, okay, I want to do something that actually helps people as they get here. But hopefully, also as we build it, we're gonna see how much value immigrants bring. And I know there are a lot of even cities in the U.S. or states or like countries around the world who really need immigration. I'm from one of those countries, Uruguay. Like we really need immigration, and we're a country of immigrants. So, I mean, this is just to say that we agree. I know we all agree that immigration is a good thing, but it doesn't mean that the name immigrant and you know it's not helping. It's kind of not helping us. Like make our
Mm-hmm.
case about
Yeah.
how much value we bring and how important it is. And I think the other thing is the way like we come about it, right? Like we need to make sure that people find us, that they know, that clients or users know that we exist because it's the only way in which we can support them. And then if we say immigrant and people don't feel they're immigrants, if that's not how they think of themselves, then we're not going to reach them. So from that angle also, yeah, we talked about, like I said, newcomers, which doesn't, I'm not a newcomer anymore, and I'm an immigrant, like
Right.
immigrant would be much more like suitable for me right now. But the thing is that when people think of immigration, this is what I've come to learn. They just think about the immigration process, like the paperwork, the visa, the green card process. And then this rebranding of immigration as like the one thing that identifies you in life. As I'm an immigrant because I came from Uruguay to here, that's kind of like an identity that is, it's how we are seen. That's not how we see ourselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that someone who comes from a country of immigrants, like Uruguay was formed in like early 1800s, a little bit after the US. Pretty much everyone who lives there descended from, immigrants from different like parts of the world, mostly Europe. And like for me, immigrants are my ancestors who left their country, who kind of were expatriates. They were leaving
Mm-hmm.
wars, leaving, hunger, and they were coming into Uruguay for new opportunities. And they moved there to start a life and build their families. And now, like, we are the product of all these different people who came here and lasted for generations. And
Sounds
I
like
don't
America.
know. I mean, yeah, exactly. The Americas, right? But the crazy thing is that I don't know one single immigrant who sees themselves as that, who thinks of themselves as someone who's, like I myself don't think about that. We are coming for an opportunity, like to, progress. It could be like across the board for self actualization. It could be for survival. But I think most people are just thinking about like starting this new experience, this new journey So that term immigration is like, it's either, I'm not, like Oyster supports with immigration, kind of like helping people get a lawyer, understanding, what processes are, trying to get them get good access to good information that they don't need to pay for, and then know when it's time to actually pay for something, because it could be costly not to do that, and that's across the board with in different services. But we don't provide visas. So if I say immigration, people are gonna think, oh, you're gonna help me
Mm.
get you're gonna help me get through that process. So it's actually misleading. So I mean, all
Yeah.
this to say that, I mean, we're still out. I think it is I love the conversation, and we talked about, asking people
Hmm.
and doing something just to hear, how it's something that I'm very curious to do, like also in the app in Oyster, right? Um, how do you see yourself when, what do you feel identified with? What do you like relate with, right?
Right. We had an event earlier, or no, now a month ago. Um
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, time slang.
Time flies when
And
you're having a good
Wait, I
time.
we
Can you
I
believe we're in
actually
April?
brought up the sorry?
No, I really we're in April already. It's
I
crazy.
know, it is insane. I feel like it was just New Year's. But yeah, so we had an event focused on, hiring from outside of New York, right? And obviously a big part of that is hiring internationally. And our co-host of the event was Ramiro from Tukey, right?
Shout
Which
out.
is an immigration firm.
Small world.
Yeah. And we were talking about that, right? Like I asked the question, like, what do you guys think of the term immigrant versus expat versus newcomer, something like that? Ramiro had an interesting, like, he's like, well, from the legal, like, he's like, I'm in the legal side, so all I think is like non-immigrant alien, or whatever like the legal terminology is, right? And
Yeah.
he's like, he's so far removed from like the emotional connotation. And then we had another gentleman, he also saying that like all of the Americans that have now lived in his country call themselves expats, but they don't call themselves expats here, right? Or like they don't use the term here. And he's like, for me, he's like, expats is the correct term, right? Because that's how he grew up. Um, it makes the most sense. Yes, there is a class designation that goes along with it, but he's like, that to me, it makes the most sense. Because it's, I guess, the more universal word.
Yeah.
Um, But again, like, I'm totally down for rebranding, and like we can do like a poll on LinkedIn, or maybe host like a webinar and be like,
Yeah.
what do people want?
Let's do that. And also, like, I'm surprised about the expat thing, and it's good to hear. I feel like we really need that data. I really believe that we should call, people whatever they feel they relate with, especially because we need to make sure they turn their heads, when we have something to share.
Yes, but we can't have like 50 terms for the same thing.
And then also, I struggle so much, like I'm building an app, so the copy, like it's very short, and and we've seen it, in ads or anything, like those, words matter, and the fact that and honestly, like I stay away from the word immigrant mostly because I feel that people right away think this is an app for visa. So I can definitely see why Amira would say that. I think that the funny part is that I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I was I've been in the US for 12 years. I've had a green card for a year and a half. And for all it
Yeah.
was a
Now we got
Yeah,
you.
yeah, no.
Now we got
yeah,
Congrats.
I mean, like,
That's such
okay,
a crazy process these days.
I mean, it was, and for months I had it here on my desk, so I would see it, every day. Like, not that I would forget, but it's crazy
Mhm.
because you get it, and the immediate impact is nothing, right? But the actual impact is huge, and that's what
It's a huge amount of relief, right?
wow. It's incredible. But the thing is that until I had my green card, I was never an immigrant according to American standards. I mean, to American
Hmm.
definition. Like I was always on non-immigrant visas. My
Hmm.
immigration process for the
You
U.S.
were an
started.
alien.
I was an alien, yeah, and they call them like the tourist visa, H-1B, O-1. They're all O-1, I think too. Yeah,
Hmm.
they're all non-immigrant visas. So
Hmm.
then it's funny because then we are immigrants, but we're not really immigrants. So I think
You're a non-immigrant, right?
we're non-immigrants, right? So yeah, I think it's very important that we know what people, and then of course, like you said, like it's not that we can have a lot of terms. It's just that, that there's a reason why definitions work, right? We need to
Hmm.
know how people see themselves. Um, so, I mean, I guess people, like as someone who just like, like who is having this new
Yeah.
experience somewhere, but
I mean, anybody listening or watching this podcast, please let us know what word or term speaks to you, right? And which ones make you feel icky and which ones make you feel good. Please, we want to know. Yeah, I mean, so like it's so important, right? I think it's really important that we rebrand what immigrants are called.
yeah.
Um,
Either that or we change a lot of people's minds, but I don't think
I
that's gonna
think
be so easy. So
we
I think
change their
rebranding,
minds by changing the word, right?
yeah. I feel it's
It's
gonna be easier to rebrand than it's gonna
yeah,
be to, yeah,
for sure.
change.
I have a question. Excuse
Okay.
me, Rach.
Yeah.
No, no,
So
I
you
was
said 12 years. What was the biggest support, even if it's just like a helpful tip that you weren't like thinking of, like, that you weren't expecting to get? What was that for you when, like, once you got here?
Wow, like the biggest one. I always struggle with these because I'm like, oh, that's so much pressure to say the biggest one.
One that like really like stands out for you, like that you've always like kept with you, or that you try to give to other people now that you're doing what you do.
Yeah. I'd say like from like the biggest one, because I think it's the one that really goes with you anywhere you go, is more like, it's like for me it's always more emotional, right? It's like what I've seen in a lot of people, and I've experienced myself, is how like we get here, like I like to think about people who are coming, for this new experience as the heroes of the story. And I think that's usually how people see themselves, even with the fear, they're overcoming the fear to start something new. But then many times as time progresses and we go through many experiences where we don't feel supported or we don't feel respected, or like I've seen a lot of people just like normalize that experience, but like personalize it and feel like this is just me, like I'm struggling with this. I actually call this chronic confusion.
mm,
I think it's like this feeling that we normalize, where we're making all these decisions that have a big impact on our lives, and all at once. We're like adulting at once. We're like things that Americans, and this happens here, but anywhere else, that people learn throughout their lifetimes, and with the support of their parents or structures that tell them about that. Call it like healthcare system, credit, taxes, like education, like cultural norms, like you name it, right? Like people spend decades learning that, and then you come here, you're expected, and you really need to learn that very quickly.
mm-hmm,
So I think like we end up normalizing making all these decisions that we end up then realizing, oh, that should have been different. I should have done that, should have done it sooner. Sometimes we didn't find out in time, sometimes we didn't know how important it was. Sometimes we just procrastinated. And, like for me, like the only reason why I didn't have better credit history after a few years in the US is because like someone had mentioned it. And I was like, ah, that's too complicated. I can't deal with that now. And I
see,
felt like,
I talk about that when with all of my relocation clients, like from day one.
okay, okay, good. I mean, because we should be.
Teach you how to play the game. Like, let's
Yeah.
go.
Exactly. I love when people say that way. A lot of people have said that, like, it's like the US has its own rules. And that's the experience of anyone who moves into a new country, like having, like its own set of rules. But no one hands you like the playbook, right? Like like,
No. And,
They barely do it
Yeah.
for the people who are born
y-
here, like, and raised here.
but I think also
Yeah.
it's not just play the game of America. It's now also play the game of whatever city you move to, right? So like in New York,
Yeah.
there are certain rules that you have to follow, unwritten rules, right? Which we also try to clue people in on when they're here. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you is like, do you think it is a benefit or a help for people to move to communities or cities where they have a larger expat community of like their culture, or is there that more of a hindrance, right? So I think
Yeah. That's a good
I'm
question. I
asking
love
this, I think, for a couple reasons, right? One, because I'm from Miami, right? So every Latin American moves there and then doesn't feel like they need to assimilate to American life because they can just like
that.
blend
Yeah.
right in.
Yeah.
Right? Is that helpful or is that harmful because they're not really learning how the rest of the country works and how the city
Yeah.
actually does integrate with the rest of the country. And this is going to sound really fucked up, but I'm going to take it all the way back to colonization.
Oh,
Okay.
The
I'm going to
first
go all the
expats, the first expats.
no.
that's what, yeah, the first thing that, yeah,
Yeah.
first
So I'm
one.
going to take it back to colonization. So like there was, the British Empire and the French Empire, and they had two very different strategies of colonization. So the British would take over and they would kind of just they would govern and make their own rules and stuff, but they never forced assimilation. So they never forced the native population to become like them. But uh, French the French Empire, they did. That's why all of their former colonies speak French, right? They forced assimilation. They said, you are now going to become like us, right? But it and there's pros and cons, obviously. There's cons to colonization. There's pros and cons to the different strategies, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And of course, it created its own cultural issues within those countries. But I think I'm bringing that up because of the whole,
yeah,
assimilate to the United States
yeah,
or whatever country you immigrate to. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
yeah. Wow, I love this question, and I also love to hear, what you think about it. So like bringing it, like I think what you share, like the historic piece is so important, and like in Latin America, it's been mostly like assimilation, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's been all like in the hands of the church as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's
Oh,
interesting to hear,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how different. But like even like not to get into like the historical like part of it, but even within the church, there were like different ways of doing it. Like some were like came more from teaching, and others were like really like I would say that in many ways, uh, yeah, like you could see more like like the better humanization within the
Mm-hmm.
assimilation uh,
Mm-hmm.
from like a specific, like part of like the Jesuits mostly, I would say. But anyway, like that aside, like coming back to the initial question, I can share a bit about my experience because I was in the US. I've been in 5 cities, and I first moved to Pittsburgh. I studied abroad. I usually don't mention that when I share the whole story because I studied abroad and I went back to Uruguay for a year. I stayed there, I graduated, and then when I came back, and that's, like the full 12 years, that's been since
Okay.
I came to see, like, before I came for that experience and went back home. And there I was in this like setting where it was like, like most Americans, it wasn't that international. I had international like classmates who were part of the same exchange program, but I felt like that's where I fell in love with the U.S. With the culture and with the opportunity. Like also, I came from like at least like this is experience in Uruguay, and I know it happens in many other places. We grow up watching American movies and sitcoms, so like for me, it was like, oh, are the red cups real? Like that was the type of it.
the red cups? The solos.
Solo red solo cups.
The
Yeah, the soda.
solos. That's
Yeah,
what you guys
and
think about? Like, out of all the things.
I mean, I remember having that question and so many questions like that were because like you watch it, as a movie and the experience there is so different. So then you always wonder, is it like being romanticized as a movie or is that true? And then so much of it is true. So I came here to study abroad and I felt like, wow, like it's like, I felt like I was living a movie. And then I made like so many great friends who invited me to their own places. Some lived in small towns, and I don't think I would have fallen in love so much with the U.S. If I hadn't had that experience. But that was Pittsburgh, and that was being in the university there. The thing with bigger cities is that like most people I meet here are not even from here, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just something I usually think about. Like I wanna like it's tough when you're just surrounded by people from. As amazing it can be as an experience, as comforting as it can be being from people from a more similar culture, and as amazing it can be to meet people from all over the world. I think there's this part that is definitely missing if you don't really understand the culture, the history, the politics. And I think that I get that mostly from my American friends. And I think I would say it's a pity. I feel like it's like for me, it would be an incomplete experience if I didn't, like have that as well. And I didn't feel like, and I'm going to say something also, like
Mm-hmm.
if you spend here a decade or all this time feeling that at any point you can be, back home, send on a plane, that your visa won't be renewed, that things are gonna work. It's really hard to set your mindset to, I
Mm.
wanna become part of the culture. I wanna, like it's usually building something that you hope you can build somewhere else, or that you can go, or you can continue somewhere else, because you're from plans A to Z. Usually after C or D, it includes like living your life in another country. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know if that answers the question well, but I would say mostly from, like, I think that the most enriching experiences come from, like, all that diversity. And
Mhm.
diversity, which is, it sounds so ironic, but it should include allowing yourself to really get to know, like, the culture. And I would say also, like, respect that culture,
Mhm.
like welcome, and knowing that, I think that because I live in San Francisco, I live in New York, that they're so diverse. And you mentioned Miami, right? And as you were saying that, I was thinking about what is Miami culture, right? Because at this point, I imagine it's like, I can think of it something that's so much more like, Latin, and
Latin culture.
exactly, it's
It's
Latin
Latin culture.
culture, right? And I have friends who live there, and I've been there, and it feels like, and it's very, like, the US is so diverse, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so then in bigger cities, it's like that diversity is part of what it is. But I feel like it doesn't change the fact that we are, from another country, that we come with a different culture. And I think the first step always needs to be like that openness and willingness, and that
Mm.
also, like, gratitude for understanding how people live here, right? And how people, what they are expecting. And I think honestly, it's sometimes hard when we think about me as an immigrant in the US, that power imbalance where, like, I feel like if I'm not welcome, then I should be allowed to be myself. And we've seen that, but we wouldn't question that so much if we say we had expats coming to Uruguay, which happens. By the way, I worked in the U.S. Embassy for a while, and I did something very similar to Oyster,
Nice.
14 years ago, working there. And I saw the benefit both ways. I even started, when I came back from studying abroad, I started the international club in my university, because I realized, like, there was no integration. All these people from around the world had all this experience to share and all this to learn, and they were in Uruguay because they wanted to learn about Uruguay. And then, there were no, like, experiences, like, opportunities for them to interact. And I could see both ways how amazing that experience was. But then we would never be okay with someone, from, let's say, like, America, coming to Uruguay and expecting everyone to speak English, or, we would say it's disrespectful if they don't adapt to the, to what people like,
Mhm.
to the way people behave, or at least have that openness to learn. So I think
Mhm.
that works both ways everywhere, right? Like,
Yeah.
that
Sure.
integration.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I know you questioned whether that was a good answer, and first of all, there is no wrong answer. And I think that was a great, like, it was an opinion, right? And it was amazing, and I love that. I feel like this getting that context that you've worked in the embassy, and having experience on both sides. Like, I feel like what you're building with Oyster has been like a lifelong choice,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
not necessarily choice, but like it's just been like your trajectory. Like it's almost like fate, right? Like this is what you are passionate about, and um you're trying to open the minds of people all over the world so that we can become a more global and yet integrated society of humans. So I
See,
love that.
you already sound less delusional. Already sound less delusional. It's like, love that.
But yeah,
I love that.
that's super achievable.
Yeah, super achievable. Okay, so on that note, is there anything else before we wrap up that you guys want to talk about? All
I
right.
mean, is it okay if I ask you guys some, like, a
Sure,
question, or?
throw
Yeah.
it out there, guys.
Because I love what, what you're doing, that you're having this, like, first row, seat to all the experiences of these people who come from other countries, and are getting to know the US. So I wonder, what your experience has been, and, like, any advice you have, or yeah, what you could share, that I could learn, and people hearing this could learn.
Yeah.
Advice
It's
about
a
the
really good question.
US.
Very broad. Very, very broad question.
Like,
No, it's a great question.
see, the thing is, like, I guess coming from New York, like, it's so different. Like, New York is so different than everywhere else in the US. Like, we're almost closer to, let's say, London and other like international cities than we are, like, I don't know, Iowa. Right? It's like,
It's like,
I mean, I would say even another big city like SF, right? There's diversity there, but it's not as international of a city.
No, I mean, like New York is it's a that's
Also,
what they call it, melting pot.
I saw that if New York City was considered its own country, it would be the ninth largest economy.
We
We also
should.
have like almost 9 million people.
Wow.
So I had an idea of just taking over the world at some point, not in like malicious and like dictator type way, just like, hey,
Because I do. I'm in the
I'm
malicious dictator type way.
probably like equipped to like handle everybody's problems. I got this.
Yeah.
Um
Oh my god.
See,
And would you want that
narcissism, narcissism.
yeah. But would you
but
want
now
that responsibility, or is it like all the power but
I'll have this
no?
shit running really smooth. Like that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like
Really?
this will be running very smoothly if I was in charge.
See, that is a dictator
Um but
Yeah.
honestly, now that I hear this, like that's the ninth, you said the ninth largest economy. I kind of think
in the world.
we should probably just want to take over New York, and then it's like taking over the world, kind of,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
sort
yeah.
of.
Okay, wait, but let's get back to the question.
Anyway, sorry. Question. Um, helpful tips. Kind of like along what you said, just have an open mind. Like I feel a stigma that Americans have is that we go places and we don't want to respect the culture. We kind of always, yeah, you have to speak English. Like, we're not trying. But there are also people who come here that like fight tooth and nail. And I'm like, yeah, but you're here now. Like, I understand you want to like keep home and you should be proud of where you come from. Like, yes, I have a saying, rep your hood 100%. But you know what? Like, you're here. So yeah, I guess the only like the biggest tip would be like keep an open mind. No dog is too old to learn how to do new things and move a certain way. So yeah, like it's a two-way street on that point.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, I like that too. The advice that I have, I think, is um be humble.
I love that.
But talk your shit.
No, and I'm gonna tell this is very specific because I grew up in Miami and I'm I'm Hispanic. My parents are Cuban. But there is a level of arrogance with um Latin immigrants to Miami.
Okay.
And they just feel like, well, I don't have to learn Spanish. Learn English because everyone here speaks Spanish, and if they don't, that's their problem. I don't have to assimilate to the culture here, and then it does create animosity,
Yeah. And
right?
exclusion, right? By
Yeah,
definition, and
by
exclusion.
definition, it is exclusion, and I think a lot of and again, I'm talking about a very specific, group of people, specific class of people, right? Um, and but I think that being humble it goes for anybody across the board, right? Just it doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is in your country. You're now
Yeah.
in a new country with a whole new set of rules and a whole different culture. Um, it might not be the best, right? Like I'm not saying America is the best place in the world and you absolutely need to do things our way. I don't agree with that. But um definitely, yeah, definitely be more humble.
I love that you mentioned that. And I think we don't talk about that enough, especially I try to remind myself of that as I work, on Oyster, because it's an app, that I'm building. Like it's an app where immigrants can help each other. But actually, like the goal is for you to feel belonging and for you to feel like you're here. And that's what we're saying. It would be such a pity for people to, like exclude Americans and the local culture out of the
Mhm.
question.
Mhm.
I would never recommend that. And I don't, not to be judgmental, but I don't think it's right,
Mhm.
like, but I mean, okay, not to be judgmental, but I'm judgmental.
It's okay. I'm always judgmental.
Not to judge, but I'm judging.
But to
Not to
judge.
judge, but I'll judge. But, I think about that, because I think we need to be aware of the fact that, for example, I think about this a lot. At the end of the day, like people who are here, it's their country, it's their rules, it's what they're used to. We think we need to be always aware of, how people are gonna feel on the other side. And I think
Mhm.
we've talked about, the like how negative the connotation around immigration is, and other things that, like we all, like we've talked about is we us here at least like agree, not that like all, but we three agree that, it's not great. Like for me, it's not fair, it's not accurate, but it doesn't mean that in my attempt to get people to feel dignified and respected and to make the best out of this experience, that I would, think that the road to that is, kind of what you're saying, where we're masking that need for dignity with arrogance or this idea.
Mhm.
I don't need to learn your customs, or like your habits. Like I don't
Mhm.
need your culture. I think, like being idealistic, I hope that, not just Oyster, but in general, I know that it will be more about like being open, as we're saying, right? And understanding. And that needs to come from both sides. Like,
Mhm.
not because I'm afraid that I've been taken advantage of or because this tag that has been put to me. I mean, that does not, like, I would say, I mean, of course, there are situations that are more complex, right? But, um, I mean, there would be no benefit in me just getting this armor up and thinking that, it's better just to stay away or not, you
Mhm.
know what I and not
Mhm.
to and also not to respect and learn. So
Yeah, I think also there's, and again, this is like a personal anecdote or observation, but I think there's also like you don't have to assimilate all the way, right? Um,
yeah,
so like my parents, right? They came to us when they were kids, and that their generation, I think, in my opinion, overdid it. So like they kept their culture, right? But like people named Miguel, they called in just that specific generation of Cuban expats, let's call them that. Um would say like, "Oh, just call me Mikey," right? Instead of
yeah,
Miguel, right?
yeah,
Or Guillermo would be like Billy, right?
yeah,
So like
yeah,
they would literally change their names,
same, yeah,
but like they wouldn't change their name, like it would still be what like their Spanish name was, but like they would just colloquially be like, no, that this is like I'm gonna be this, and so they became almost too American. Not, I mean, in my opinion, but like um in that sense, right? Like where we were talking about in the very beginning, it's not hard to say your name the way that it is, intended. Um,
yeah,
I don't think we need to lose that, and you can still keep your culture. Like, my we're very Cuban. Sometimes I even like sometimes I won't even say, "Oh, I'm American," like, but I am American, right? Like, um, I think also it's interesting from the two different sides of my family. Like my dad's family, his grandparents were European, and they like immigrated from Europe and then lived in Cuba, and they completely assimilated to Cuban culture, like
yeah,
100%. They stopped speaking their native languages.
yeah,
They raised their children as Cuban, right? And then when my grandparents immigrated to the United States, they also assimilated, but they continued to like be Cuban, right? They taught their kids Spanish. They taught their kids their culture because they didn't have that, right? Their parents were like, "Nope, you're not European. You are now like you were born here. You are here. We have completely assimilated, right?"
which
And
is I
then,
think very representative of that time in
ge-
history, right?
yeah,
Of how, yeah,
generations, yeah,
yeah,
for sure. But like, I think it's crazy, right? Like, even my grandmother, like, she's still alive, thank God. But like, she's also like, like, I wish, like, I didn't know anything about my parents' life before Cuba. Like, they didn't tell us
yeah.
anything. We don't know
Wow,
anything about that.
wow.
And so like, I feel like there's you can assimilate. You don't have to go all the way.
Yeah. And, like, thank you for sharing. I love that story. I was going to say, coming from a country of immigrants where our culture as Uruguayans is a mixture of things that have to do with,
Mhm.
I mean, the local culture, but mostly, or, or very much also the culture of the countries that, colonized, which were
Mhm.
mostly like Spain. And then also there was a lot of Italian influence. So, a lot of like our food, things that we consider to be part of Uruguayan culture is the culture that we got from, like our ancestors and the first immigrant.
So where
So
does
I think
chavito come from?
where's that, what?
Was
El
it
chivito.
chavito? Yeah, chavito. There you go. Rach, bang it. That's what you. No, I know some people, and they put me on. Like New York,
You know
like
the right
look, they take
people.
care of me, and all I ever asked
You
for
know
is like,
the
I want the good food. So show me the good stuff. Listen,
Chivito has a great,
H,
yeah.
anytime you like out drinking or people out there in the internet world, anytime you like are having a great night and you get home, have that, Betty. Mm, mm.
I, you know the right people. I can see. So chivito is like a Uruguayan, like, I hate when people say sandwich, but I'm gonna say it for the purpose of just like speed and clarity. But it's like a sandwich, of kind of like a steak. The story is crazy. It was kind of like a mistake that came up in Punta del Este, in a beach town in Uruguay, because an Argentinian ordered a chivito expecting something, and the restaurant had no idea. The chef had no idea what to do, so they just made this thing up, and it ended up being chivito.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Throw it on a plate. Give it to the Argentinian. Fuck it, go.
I cannot believe that in the one thing that no one will argue is absolutely Uruguayan, because we always have these, things like this Argentine is Uruguayan, we share like the same like
Mm-hmm.
origin. So a lot of things started even before there were countries. One thing that no one argues is ours. Actually, like it came up in the history, of course, there was an Argentinian there.
Yeah,
It's
that's
kind of
awesome.
funny because what we're saying, all the value that comes out of this like mix of cultures and this clash in a way of experiences. I think that if there's one thing I want to end with, talking about this, is that I always try to like approach, if we're working with immigration, we know it's a sensitive topic, and it's a, impacting people's lives and like everything in their lives. And it's also like, or like we said, like there's a whole narrative, it's a political issue as well. And I try to approach things always from a place of like openness, as we're saying, and humility and empathy. And when it comes to fear, immigration wouldn't have such a bad connotation if it wasn't because of fear, because people
Mm-hmm.
actually are, like open to believing that there's something that is putting them in danger. And I'm not going to go into the details of why that happens, but if there's fear, I think that we can all do like an effort in understanding, okay, where's that fear coming from, and how can I, like I don't have to agree that there's a threat, but I can like validate and try to understand where the fear comes from. And, there's no takeaway there. It's just like for me, just like how I try to think about things, and what you're talking about. Like I completely understand that someone who's in their country will feel fear, even if it's not this visceral fear of being attacked, but like that feeling of, will my, customs that I love, will my traditions that, my parents taught me, will that disappear because of this? I think that we have to be more open to have, to have these conversations deeply and understand each other. Maybe maybe that's also another path to not rebranding, but understanding, why like
Mm.
what certain things happen, just
Yeah,
like,
empathy goes a
yeah,
long way.
goes a long
One
way. And
hug at a time.
yeah, and the thing is that listening and empathizing or understanding, even if there's no agreement, like, and exactly, it doesn't mean that I agree. It doesn't mean that I mean, honestly, it just means that I'm willing to understand where the other person is coming
Mm-hmm.
from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Just
I love that,
one
and I think that's a perfect place for us to stop.
thought.
Um, so Ines, where can people find you? Where can they find Oyster?
Okay, so it's oystersapp.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Have to share, I won't pronounce, I won't say my last
Say
name.
it.
I don't think.
Say it.
So,
Say it.
Say it for the
I said it.
people. Be proud.
very proud. Okay, it's Illarramendi or Illarramendi. That's how they would pronounce it. Like it's actually Basque. But
Oh,
even
okay.
people back at home struggle. So yeah, it's like pretty long and has a rolling R's. So it's Ines Illarramendi. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can message me directly, or oystersapp.com. There's a sign up form, and I'll get an email and I'll give you access to the beta version to anyone who's willing to be like a pioneer and an early adopter, because that's where we are right now.
Hell
Early beta.
yeah. Hell
Yay!
yeah.
I definitely will
Sweet.
support that and promote you as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, we will. We're gonna put the link also like in the
Thank you.
description of all of the things, and if I don't do it, because I'm not doing it, Mags
Mags
is
is
gonna do
gonna
it.
take
Thanks,
care
Mags.
of you. She's amazing. We love you, Mags.
Thank you,
So,
Mags.
Rach, tell the people where they find you.
All over the fucking internet, bro. You can you can find us on our website, pinpoint.nyc. You can find us on Instagram, point group. I think it's pinpoint_group. We're on Facebook if anybody still goes there. We're on TikTok. We're on
Wow.
TikTok.
Tiggy Talk.
How's that go?
Again, thank you, Mags. I think again it's Pinpoint Group. You can just find us. We're on LinkedIn at Pinpoint Group. You can find me, Rachel Fiegler, at on LinkedIn. You can find our podcasts anywhere you get your podcasts: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, everywhere. We have a newsletter which you can find on our website. Or I think it's also newsletter.pinpoint.nyc. So yeah, like I said, all over the fucking internet.
Just find us is the thing.
What'd you say?
Well, the link
Ines?
NYC, the link NYC ads.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and on the street. And you can literally see us on the streets of New York.
Like, well, you could always find me out there in the streets making these deals, people. Thank you, Inez, so much for like showing up. Also, wait, I forgot. You can find me on LinkedIn, Josh Hernandez. This was a good one. I like this one. This was very informative. I love what you're doing.
I love this one.
And
Thank you, guys.
much support. We're gonna see you back soon. Hopefully, you're gonna give us an update on how
Yeah.
everything's going with the company. And
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
everyone have a blessed Friday. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks.
Peace.
Bye.
Peace.